Here, this perp back with another video, and just got out of watching Maxine. This is the conclusion to Ty West's X trilogy. You know, we had X and Pearl back in 2022, and this is to wrap up the whole entire story. And what did I think about it? We're going to get into that in this video. I'm not going to get into any spoilers because this just came out. I just want to kind of give you my brief thoughts. And, you know, there's a lot to talk about with this movie, and I've always found it fascinating. I even called it when Pearl came out, or just around X, around that time, that they were going to name this Maxine. And it's such a fitting ending, I will say that up front, for this whole entire story, because from the beginning of this trilogy, technically with Pearl, even though we got X first, it really just kind of shows you the differences in the characters and the certain paths that they ended up with, like where Pearl had more of this like isolated kind of upbringing and didn't really get as far as Maxine does in this movie. So this movie picks up about, 5 or 6 years from X. We're in the 80s, this is 85, so this is a completely different vibe, and that's what I've also liked about this franchise, or this trilogy as a whole. Each movie has its own distinct vibe and themes throughout it, where Pearl has this kind of dark Dorothy, Wizard of Oz, Technicolor, Hitchcock type of vibe, and then X gives you that early slashers, Texas Chainsaw Massacre vibe all throughout X, and why a lot of people gravitate towards that movie. As time goes on, you know, more people kind of are leaning towards Pearl, but it's going to be interesting to see the discussion with this, because there's a ton to kind of talk about. Starting with Maxine herself, just her personality and how it's completely the polar opposite of Pearl, where Maxine in this is super confident in herself and her belief in her goals and what she wants to achieve. She's very cocky, very arrogant, to a point where she just believes very strongly that she can go past this whole porn thing and just get into becoming a movie star. And that's her whole kind of drive, is that she wants to be this huge star, and she'll do it by any means. But she also does her own little side missions, which leads to one of the most graphic things I've seen in this franchise, and just on a big screen, that really, oh man, just wait until you see it. So as she is climbing through the ladder of success through Hollywood and whatnot, which I really like the themes throughout this whole entire movie, and just the set pieces of just old Hollywood, and certain sets that there's this one chase scene in this movie that's really fucking cool, going through all these different movie sets. And obviously you saw Bates Motel, which that gets used pretty frequently, and there's a lot of like parallels and just a lot of like meta things within this movie that reflects Maxine's character, if that makes sense. And to also talk about the setting and it being in the 80s, it's really dope to kind of just see what was going on at that time with the whole rise of like Satan worship, and just the religious kind of backstories that we get with certain characters. I'm not going to mention who, but yeah, it's really fascinating. And I love how even in the trailer it sets up like it's going to be Maxine versus the Night Stalker, and I really like how that's utilized throughout this whole entire movie, because it makes it feel like this crime thriller murder mystery. And as soon as, you know, Maxine's past comes back to haunt her, we get to see a much more vulnerable side of Maxine. But she ain't, you know, she's not no one to be really fucked with. It's just we get to see what kind of haunts her, that she's kind of blocked out all the events from X up until this point, and whoever, you know, is kind of pulling these strings or is trying to antagonize Maxine is doing it for a reason. And this is where Kevin Bacon character comes in as this like private detective, and then just one thing leads to a next where, you know, bodies start to kind of pop up and they have these like satanic like pentagrams on them and whatnot, and we have these two detectives trying to question Maxine about this. So she's getting pressed from all these different angles while also trying to star in this big horror movie. It's a lot in this movie, but I really like how it all kind of ties together, and it's this homage to just Hollywood and definitely like the workspace, and just there's a lot to be said in this movie. And the twists and turns that it goes, I wasn't really expecting, but I really enjoyed it. I kind of predicted it in my mind that it would kind of go in this direction, just all the little seeds that were planted in X, and now how it's kind of starting to unfold in this movie, and we kind of see just where Maxine's headspace is at. And I just really enjoy this movie. It's oozing with 80s vibes. Like, it just really feels like something that would have come out at that time. Just how it's paced, it takes its time. It's very unique, you know. That's what I'm saying. I'm really curious to see how people are going to interpret this compared to X and Pearl. Overall, I really enjoyed this movie. I have to watch this a couple more times to really digest some things and process certain things that went on in this movie, because it's, like I said, it's a lot. But I would definitely recommend going to check this out in theaters when you get a chance. I feel like this whole X trilogy has been a phenomenal experience, very one of a kind. It's definitely going to be one of those trilogies that's going to be talked about for years, for sure. I think it does a great job of just concluding everything that has been set up in these previous movies. Mia Goth as Maxine as a whole is just a complete rock star. She just demands your attention anytime she's on screen. Even the other actors and actresses that were in this did a good job playing their roles, just really capturing that 80s essence, that vibe. I'm looking forward to seeing what Ty West does next. I don't know if it's going to be horror or if it's going to be something completely different. I'm down with that, with whoever. Same thing with Mia Goth, you know, because I feel like she is really thriving in this horror space, and now that she has not only one of the best horror trilogies, one of the best trilogies of all time under her belt. I want to know your thoughts when you get around to checking this out. Where does Maxine rank amongst the three? Is it the best? Is it the least? Is it somewhere in the middle for you? Let me know your thoughts. Until next time, I will see y'all in the next one. Peace.